Professor Nico Botha is the Commission's chairperson, and he joins us now for a discussion on this and some awareness as well. Dr. Botha, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity. Morning to the viewers.
Dr. Botha, let's just start with some background here. If we could just start perhaps by understanding a little bit more about the Commission on Khoi-San Matters and its formation.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what specific information you may want to hear, but let me for starters say that it has taken a bit of time for the Commission to get going. You will remember that the Act has gone through Parliament in 2019, and in November of 2020, it was signed into law by President Ramaphosa. The Act itself became operational on the 1st of April 2021, and the Commission, consisting of 4 people for now, started its work on the 1st of September 2021. So here we are, and today is for us a great historical moment, because for the first time in the history of this country, you can literally say for centuries, it is the first time now that the Khoi-San people, in terms of Act 3 of 2019, will get forms of recognition on a number of levels. The communities will be recognized if they comply with the criteria as set out in the Act. Branches will get recognition, branch heads, and of course then senior Khoi-San leaders. And today is the launch of a campaign which will take us into all 9 provinces. So today we're simply saying, here we are, this is the Commission, this is our brief, this is the work that we are supposed to do, and we shall now venture into the all 9 provinces for an awareness campaign. The awareness campaign, can I just clarify that from the onset, relates to the application process. So we'll be going out there and speak to people, communities, branches, leaders, speak to them on the application process, spelling that out as best as we can to make the process for themselves much easier when they start lodging applications with the Commission.
So, Dr. Botha, what is the qualification criteria? You said, the process will be spelled out. If you can just maybe succinctly talk us through that process, but the qualification criteria and the process to apply for those who wish to do so.
Can I just make a comment that in the Commission, we have worked hard in constructing a format, a template, an application form, if you like. The application form is constructed in such a way that the different levels of application, if you like, could be done on one and the same application form. That's for communities, branches, branch heads, and head women, head men, all categories of senior Khoi-San leaders. There are a set of criteria which applicants will have to comply with. And can I just say that historically, what is important to realize is that we've gone through a thoroughgoing process in terms of establishing, in terms of identifying these criteria. So the Khoi-San people on the ground, Khoi-San leaders, were all involved in the process. And ultimately, just to give you an example, because I'm not too sure how much time we've got available, but for example, if I can speak to the recognition for a community or a branch, obviously there needs to be self-identification. In other words, people will have to say, well, I identify as, and keep in mind there are 5 main groupings, namely the Cape Khoi, the Korana, the Griqua, the Nama, and the San. So people will have to say, I identify as a Griqua or as a Nama. Furthermore, there should be a very clear history of identification, a history of adhering to norms, if you like, to customs, customary law that is unique and that is different from any other community. Also, those applicants, in the case of leaders, will have to give us a proven record of either having been or having emerged as a leader in a hereditary form, or they've been elected as a leader. So these are some of the criteria, and once again, people have not objectively sat in an ivory tower to construct the Act. The Act was very much also pertaining to the criteria, and there are much more. Constructing the criteria informed by what they've picked up from the ground and by what they've heard from Khoi-San leaders.
So, for these communities, I'm just curious, for a community to be recognized, just talking to the criteria once again. You spoke about, for example, the leadership, there needs to be some evidence of this being hereditary, etc. But if we talk about communities, how do you go about establishing that?
Yeah, well, in the case of the communities, and this is how the application form has been constructed. So apart from showing very clearly in the case of communities that they comply with a set of criteria, there will always also be space for them to tell their story. So in narrative style, they can tell the Commission why they think they should be recognized in terms of their history, in terms of adhering once again to particular customs, in terms of holding on to, if you like, particular rituals, or just issues that are uniquely part and parcel of that community. But once again, there is space for them to tell their story. And I suppose that the Commission will have to proceed carefully in terms of taking into cognizance, taking into consideration that most of the time the history and all of these things that we are talking about have been sort of deliberately, consciously, systematically and systemically obliterated by colonial apartheid. So, and that is why there will be a very huge responsibility on the Commission to also, in terms of what the Act provisions, saying that the Commission should be unbiased, should be objective, but also fair. So we'll have to figure out for ourselves what fairness would mean in this historical context when these very, very valuable cultural things, customs and all of that might be very, very difficult here and there to reconstruct.
So, on the question of identity, Dr. Botha, when you look at people who self-identify as colored, and many of them, at least anecdotally, also seem to say that, we are of Khoi-San heritage. So in that instance, is there going to be engagement with communities in terms of just establishing in further forms of clarity the question of identity and who then qualifies or doesn't, and on what basis?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. It's a very good question. So I would not even know where to start. But let me start by saying that it's an open process. So ultimately, it will be about the quality of applications submitted. The Commission cannot sort of prejudge. So the Commission cannot decide beforehand, no, we shall look at these applications, but not those. Let me also make a comment on identity. What is very interesting about the Khoi-San, and you will find this in most of the communities, in the community where I reside, that issue is coming to the fore very, very sharply. And here's the issue, that the Khoi-San people, those who identify radically as such, once again, either in terms of the 5 main groupings or a subgrouping, are very resolute in saying, we are not colored. We are breaking radically with this imposition of colonial apartheid. We are Khoi-San, and furthermore, we identify as, and I've already mentioned the 5 main groupings, Cape Khoi, Korana, Griqua, Nama, San. So what is of crucial importance also is that the Khoi-San people who say we are not colored, they seem to be identifying very strongly with the continent. So there is an emerging African consciousness, if you like. So they say quite openly, quite unashamedly, that they're from Africa, and therefore part of the recognition process, I suppose, can be construed as a kind of de-Africanization. So, because this is what Khoi-San people are choosing for. And obviously in communities, there are those, quite a number of them, still identifying as colored, and they sort of distinguish themselves from the Khoi-San. So we are dealing here with a very, very specific situation where some people say, no, I'm unashamedly, unapologetically Khoi-San, this is who I am, I'm not a colored, I would much rather identify stronger with the continent and develop an African consciousness, if you like.
And then, Dr. Botha, with the Act now in place, how does this affect people who had already traditionally been recognized as traditional leaders? Does this Act in any way affect them?
No, not at all. That's although we try as much as possible to create synergies between different groupings, this Act pertaining to the Khoi-San does not have anything to do with that.
So then what will happen after the documentation has been collected? But before that, perhaps, so are you going to go out into different communities specifically, or will this particular process unfold on a more broader scale? How are you going to collect this information, and what happens to the documents after the process?
Yeah, for starters, I've alluded to that already. There will come a rollout from April on. So in terms of which we shall venture into the communities and bring the Khoi-San people, communities, leaders, whoever, bring them together in at a central place in a city or so, to specifically speak to them about the application process, to see whether there are difficulties emerging in terms of, let's say, for example, in terms of how to complete the application form. So we'll try to keep them informed as much as possible. And obviously, we shall make use of social media. We shall make use of the provincial structures of the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. We shall make use of churches and of sports clubs, and you name them, to get the message out and to make sure that people are well informed. About the applications, what we have decided to do is not to receive applications electronically. So they will either have to submit those applications by hand, and I suppose that those who are closer to Pretoria, like in Johannesburg and surrounding areas, for them it will be sort of practically easier to just proceed to our offices in Pretoria and make the submission by hand, or like in olden times, to send the application to us by registered mail. So that's a way of making sure that, because with the electronics you can do strange things, and therefore we've opted for a system where, like I've said, you would either submit by hand or you would send the application form by registered mail, and then the actual work of the commission starts. Because we shall then have to look at the applications, and if there is doubt or if there's something that we are not certain about, we shall vet, we shall investigate. We shall have researchers or do that research ourselves to find out more, to make sure, but also as a type of affirmative action almost, to say, well, let's assist communities in terms of further research, in terms of looking deeper into this matter and see whether the application cannot be significantly improved. So that is, in a nutshell, I don't know how big that nutshell is, in a nutshell what the unfolding of the application process might entail.
Well, it's going to be very interesting, Professor Botha, and I must say I look forward to perhaps catching up at a later stage, and who knows, maybe speaking to you during that process just to find out the sort of issues that you will have to grapple with as a commission.
Indeed.
But thank you so much for your time, Professor Nico Botha, the Commission Chairperson, and talking to us here about a very important matter, the Commission on Khoi-San Matters, and together with the with COCTA, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, launching an awareness campaign on an application process for people who are stipulated in Section 56 of the Traditional and Khoi-San Leadership Act can apply either as communities or leaders of the Khoi-San. So it's going to be a very interesting one, and we look forward to actually catching up with the Commission on their work.